Welcome to the Logistics Monk Show. Can you believe I believe it's the fourth episode already that I've kind of started this journey and having genuine conversations with friends, people that I don't know, amazing creatives. And today, I'm like I always kind of say this, I'm really looking forward to the conversation today, but I don't believe that there's coincidences in life. And the guest that we have on today, he's definitely in that I would want to say in that bracket or in that pool or in that group because just a little bit of history, but his partner, Clarissa Page, actually came on our show on Sales Chatter, and we had her as a mental health coach and kind of give her insights, and she's been on the show twice. But Steve and I have actually forged this friendship, I would say, over the last couple months, where we're so supportive. He is an aspiring. He does amazing things, and one of the coolest things that he does is that he actually has a journal on Amazon, which you call it Endure, and I personally use this. This is actually it's the first time he's hearing this, but I actually use this for my big goals. So all my big goals are in this book. So I'm manifesting and definitely doing a lot through that, but just to see the support that Steve has shown me, shown the show, and things like that. And the conversations that we've had, it's always been progressive. He's somebody who is always looking at it from a different, like a 50-foot, thousand view of life itself, what he believes. And he's always willing to give advice that is something that's helpful to somebody. So without further ado, I want to bring on our amazing guest today, Steve Leslie. He's like I said, you're in for a treat today. So let's bring him on as we welcome him to the Logistics Monk Show. What's going on, Steve?
Hey Ryan, how you doing?
Oh man, I'm ecstatic for to have you on the show today. It's I first and foremost thank you for being here. So tell everybody a little bit about how we got to this journey of where you are right now, because we got a lot of stuff to unpack today. But I know you have like different career paths that you've taken to the step that you're at today.
Sure. I'm still working on how to craft this all together because I've had everything's just been so different in
Mm,
my eyes. But I guess coming out of uh, high school, I ended up with my own sausage cart business for just one season, but it was amazing. We were on a beach like the whole summer. I went to college after that, and all the while, I was also in a musician for a good decade.
mm.
Nothing major, but we did play a few solid shows that were in front of a couple thousand people. So that's like my highlight for that. But in the background, I always had this desire, I guess, to learn about sales and marketing and business, and that actually came to fruition when I was graduating college and I got a job at a swimming pool manufacturer, and I was actually co-oping there to do design work, and ended up doing all their marketing for them as well. And so that's how I got into that business and ended up taking over the customer service and sales and marketing end of it. And then I don't know if you heard about this or not, but back in 2020, there was this little thing called COVID that happened, which in the swimming pool industry caused like this huge explosion.
Mhm.
Like it was crazy. Like there was a lot of people that were getting laid off, sent home, right, with in different industries, but the swimming pool industry was like booming. There will never be another cycle like it, and it
Mhm.
just continued for a good 2.5 years. And like I should add that typically what happens in a season, like a calendar year, you have about 4 months where you're like busting your ass, like working hardcore, and you gotta make what's the phrase? You gotta make hay while the sun's shining, and that's very true in the pool industry. But then so there's like about 4 months of like super intense work. There's about another 4 months of like you're busy, but you're not like spinning your wheels out of control. And then there's about 4 months where you're, contemplating if you should sweep up the same pile of dirt again and again. Like it just dies right down. Well, when in 2020, like that, as soon as people kind of figured out that yes, you're allowed to still work in that industry and it's needed. Oh my God, it was just like craziness for like 24, 25, 26 months. And in that time frame, I ended up also getting into real estate. And prior to COVID, I bought a place in London and I bought a place in Michigan a month before the world shut down. And then in 2021, bought another place closer to Chatham. And that one second.
No worries.
Sorry, I have a cat here that's just 1 second.
Yeah, no worries, my man. No worries. Well, everybody knows that I got a bunch of dogs, so we've got some. We're pet friendly here at the Logistics Monk Show.
Sorry, she really wants to go outside. We took her outside for like 15 minutes this morning, but when she like gets cranky about it, she gets
She's
a little.
Like, I want to go now.
She starts clawing things and stuff. Anyways, so I bought a place in London, and then I bought a place in Michigan, and in 2021 bought a place closer to Chatham in Rodney, Ontario, and that turned into like a financial disaster. Like from start to finish, it was terrible. I was so lucky to not lose my shirt on it and get out like mid 2022. That kind of mentally broke me, like with the amount of stress that I was under in the swimming pool industry, even more so with this real estate project in Rodney. Like that's really what did it for me. In also in 2020, I was really into running, and I had started doing like longer distances, and I ran a 50K, a 60K, and then finally a 100K ultra marathon. And these weren't like scheduled events or anything. These were just like on my own, like just one day I'm gonna run this, right? And the 100K I did in support of Movember to raise money for men's health. That 100K physically broke me, and then within a couple of years, like mentally broke me with not working out, all the stress. Like I was done. And fortunately, I was able to walk away from my job back in October. My boss was so cool about it. Like when I talked to him, it was very emotional. Like I was in tears talking to him. Like I can't stay here. I need to get away, because as badly as I wanted to stay, I knew that if I stayed, something like health wise was going to be in my future, because I was like to that extent like just burnt right out. And so start of October came. Clarissa and I went to Arizona for like 10 days or so. So it was like the perfect getaway. And we both had always kind of thought about that area before we even got together. And that was just such a magical place for us, and a place of healing. I got to get out hiking again. We ended our trip doing Angel's Landing in Zion, which is actually southern Utah. But Angel's Landing is like rated between that and Half Dome in Yosemite in California. Those two, I'd say, compete for like the most dangerous hike in the States, and probably one of the most dangerous hikes in the world. But it's like the first time I did that in 2019 and nearly had a panic attack. Like I caught myself having a panic attack like halfway up, because I have videos on my YouTube page about it, and it's like there's parts where it's literally like 2 to 3 feet wide that you're walking on with like
Hmm.
1,400 foot uh, cliffs on either side. So for the most part, you're focused on the person in front of you, like, and where you're stepping. But then there was a certain point where you had to wait for the person in front to jump up like 10 feet or so.
Hmm.
And so at that point, that's when the realization of where am I came into mind. And
Mm.
that's when I started freaking out. I was like, nope, this is not like a roller coaster. You can't hit a stop button, let me off. Like, you either continue on or you go back.
Yeah.
And so I kind of regrouped and went with that. But, anyways, that uh, the magic that we had that whole time frame in the Southwest, mostly Arizona,
Yeah.
mostly in Sedona, we decided, along with another friend of ours from Midland, like we're in Midland, Ontario, we decided that we were going to bring that magic to the north because of everything that people have endured in the last 2 or 3 years. Like, this year is the year to get out and just like embrace life again, you know. And there's a lot of people that aren't as lucky or aren't in the position right now to go on a trip like that
Yeah.
where they can, you know, take the flight down, stay there for an extended period of time, because it's not cheap in that area. In the surrounding area it's pretty cheap, but that area specifically is not. So to bring that to Ontario and to allow people to experience, like, we're going to have yoga, uh, Reiki. We're bringing in a guest speaker who's like globally renowned for breath work, out of Austin, Texas, Ava Johansson, or Johanna, sorry. Uh, she's coming up. We have Chris Assad, who's this wonderfully musically talented person. He's very well known in the space of like heart centric healing and like natural healing, that sort of thing. Goes to love festivals, all that. So we're bringing that up. We're also going to have like a mental challenge as well, which is like
Nice.
physical in nature, but it's going to be an amazing experience to just immerse yourself back into civilization again, have fun, and, you know, kind of choose your own adventure for the day. And we'll end it with like the musical performance, big bonfire, and it's going to be phenomenal. So um, I feel like I kind of went on a little bit of a rant there, but that's
Mhm.
kind of my whole background coming into this.
No, and I appreciate it. So there's a lot to unpack there, and I want to, and we'll talk about the event later on this episode because I'd love to feature that as well. But so okay, so let's unpack that. So like you said, you were a musician, and then you knew that you wanted to get into sales and marketing, and being a musician is something I can relate with. I've been playing music my whole life, and the lessons that I've learned, Steve, is be punctual. Practice truly does make right practice makes perfect, and that's what I think. You sometimes I'll play my instruments and I'll mess around. And you mentioned that you had like the hot dog stand for like one season. Knowing that you
Yeah.
wanted to get into sales and marketing, and specifically talking about the musician part, because like you said, I know a lot of people downplay being a musician, but you played some really cool gigs. What have you learned, or what skills did you learn being a musician transfer into your success? I would say this is definitely a big success at the pool company that you worked at for a couple of years.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing is to get over the fear of speaking in public or performing live. And like, I do not consider myself extroverted. I'm like a practiced or a learned extrovert. I'm very introverted in nature. And the one thing, I guess the biggest thing that I learned when it comes to performance is the initial starting point is something that you want to make it super easy,
Mm.
because someone like me, uh, you know, I I don't consider myself having like panic attacks, but I recognize that my body is like getting excited and like the
Yeah.
palms get sweaty. You know, you're kind of getting short on breath a little
Oh, the
bit. Your
heart.
heart's pumping, right? And so I view that as recognizing my body is ready to go on. In doing so, my body is also going into like fight or flight mode,
Mm,
where like your blood's rushing to your extremities, right? Not so much to your head. So you're thinking, I feel like it goes way down. So how we would counteract that is we would have like 3 or 4 banger songs that we would jump out on stage with that super easy to play, right? And we would do that. I think we would play like 3 songs in a row to start off the show, kind of back
okay.
to back to back. And then by that time, all the nerves were out and we
Yeah.
were engaged with the audience and we were having fun and we weren't like got the jitters and whatnot. So that was key to like coming together as a band on stage. Personally, when it came to I guess like leading up in the last hour before taking the stage, I would go around, talk to people that were there, people that I
Yeah.
knew and whatnot. And if they started asking me how I was feeling about the show tonight or something in related to the show, I would kind of downplay it and kind of change the subject. And
Yeah.
I got this from Darren Hardy, who used to own Success Magazine, or he was like the chief of staff or something. He was a big guy up in Success Magazine. And he talked about giving these keynote speeches to like 25,000 people in an audience, right?
Hmm.
And what he said is he would prepare the day before. He would go on the stage, like visualize it, and practice his speech a little bit, but more visualize. And then the day of, he wouldn't look at his notes. He wouldn't
Mm,
think about what he wanted to say. It would be completely irrelevant, and then he would step on stage, and then he would deliver it. And I found that in doing so, it allowed me to stay outside of my head, so I wouldn't. You know how like sometimes you overthink things, and then you're like,
100%. Yep.
right? So you stay outside your head. You already know that there's 3 songs that you're not going to screw up. Like it'd be hard to screw up. Even if you missed a note, like no one's going to notice, right? And so just nice and easy, get on stage, recognize that your body is actually helping you to get amped up for it, and away you go. And that was like the majority of our gigs. Like that's what happened. I will touch on one very important lesson. This happened 2011, I think. It was with this band. This was the first like big gig that we had played. Up
Mm,
until this point, I had been with them for close to a year, I'd say, and we had always only played one set, which was all originals, which was fine. But we ended up getting this gig where we were playing at a beer tent in front of like 500 to 1,000 people. We were going to be playing for like 3 to 4 hours.
mhm.
So going from like a 45-minute set
Oh, wait a
to
minute.
3 to 4 hours, you got to get some filler in there, right? So we were adding cover songs and trying to add in like little, making it our own, right? Like adding some cool little things within a song, I guess. Anyways, we're practicing "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins.
Hell of a song, by the
And
way.
I know, and it was a banger. Let me say that. But we were practicing, and there's one point where like we just weren't getting it. Like we weren't cohesive at this one point, and then all hell broke loose. Like the band was pretty much done at this point, and it was like within the last week leading up to this gig. Might have even been like a day or two before. And so what had happened is we had put so much pressure on ourselves
Mm.
to perform at such a high level because we're like, this is the biggest gig of our, well, 2/3 of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And uh, so it's like, okay, we need to figure this out right now. Like, there is no tomorrow. We sit down right now and figure this out. And so we voiced our frustrations, and we had this conversation where we were able to like view our concerns or express our frustrations, that sort of thing, where it wasn't, we were able to recognize it wasn't personal, like it
Yeah.
was the situation, right?
Mhm.
And we were able to say, well, why are we putting so much pressure on ourselves? Like, this is about having fun, like,
Mhm.
right? Like, we enjoy playing together, we enjoy making music, like, let's just have fun. And after that conversation, we became like a solid unit. And so it took like this almost traumatic experience or traumatic event, I guess, for the band, and it propelled us so much. Like we, it propelled us so much. I guess it was. Have you ever heard of Patrick Lencioni?
No, I have not. No.
Okay, so he wrote a book, which I actually haven't read, but I heard him in an interview talking about this book, and it was the five dysfunctions of an organization. I believe that's the title. I could be wrong. Um, but he talks about how to handle these hard conversations and
Yeah.
how to like present it where it's like, Ryan, you and I could be mad at each other, or you could be frustrated with me. And by not saying anything, you're hoping that by ignoring it, it just goes away. But
Yep.
it doesn't. It festers and it breeds like a cancer. And so one day we could be talking. I could do something minor that just sets you off. Well, maybe not the logistics, but anyone else might set them off and like have this huge explosion. And maybe it's not that what I did was all that bad or all that frustrating, but you had internalized so much frustrations that it
Yeah.
eventually blew up, right? So the longer you wait to have those conversations, the worse it's going to get.
Yep.
But to handle it, to say, like, I love you, but I hate this situation. We have to change this situation.
Yep.
But I love you. I respect you. I still like want to be friends with you. But this has to change because this is not good. And by putting the onus on the situation rather than the person, you're more likely to be received by that person. But also by having those difficult conversations, that builds your relationship so much as well.
Yep.
Like Clarissa and I have had so many difficult conversations with ourselves, with family members, you name it. And it's like every time that it happens, we're always like, I don't want to have this conversation, but I know it
Yep.
has to happen. And then by the end of it, it's like, you know what? It was difficult to go into that, but at least for us, we feel like our bond is that much stronger coming out of it because we're able to have these conversations and we're both respectful of
Yep.
each other sharing those feelings.
I love that so much. And then there's a couple of things I want to, there's a lot of gold nuggets for the audience for them to understand that, hey, this, let's talk about the band a bit and your experience, getting up there, playing gigs and knowing that you're going to play 3 to 4 songs that, that make you feel comfortable. Steve, in a logistics career, and I work in sales, and for the audience as well, like whatever job you do, whatever career you do, always set yourself up for some kind of success before you're going into something hard. For me, what I kind of do before I've been in this industry for about 6 years, and I still get that like little heart pumping or like nervous sweats when I'm going to make a cold call. and I've made probably made thousands of cold calls, Steve. So for me, I do kind of like the same thing. If I know I have a prospecting block of I'm going to make X amount of calls, I'll call my current customers, and that's how I kind of pre-game myself. Or I'll watch a video on YouTube, Ed Milet, Jay Shetty, David Goggins, something that kind of pump me up a little bit, because I believe that yes, motivation is great, but the execution is even better. I like what you said about that when you downplay whenever you did a gig, like if people asked how you were, and I'm exactly the same way as you are. And you mentioned that you're extroverted, only kind of like by force. Like, I feel like it's the same thing like myself. It's kind of like an on and off switch. For me, it's just like I'm not that type of person to really go and talk to new people as much people would be to me. That you're very extroverted, Ryan. Well, if I get comfortable with you, then I'll have those conversations. The other part that I really like that you said, Steve, was that difficult conversations with somebody and coming from a place of love, because I faced exactly what you faced. We were going to play our biggest gig in downtown Toronto in front of like 20,000 people. And the crazy thing was that we did shit the bed on our performance because we're like, oh my God, we're kids and like there's so much people here. But the one thing is that unless you played the instrument that we played, you wouldn't have known that we made mistakes. So that's the one thing you always kind of like in life specifically, even if you're doing sales or you're writing a book or starting something amazing, understand that you're going to be the biggest critic of yourself. And realistically, somebody's not going to really notice, right? Like for me, we were talking about this off air. My first episode, I was supposed to edit out the beginning of it because I took like 3 takes, but I didn't catch that through post production. And I feel like that's a little bit humbling to me, at least, right? To understand that from there. But you kind of mentioned like having that difficult conversations like with your partner, with your family and your friends, and you're coming back together. Talk to me and the audience a little bit more about, you said that hey, everything was at going great with the pool because like you said, the COVID, everything boomed from there. So everything, you see success. Anybody else would probably think, Steve, oh my God, you're so busy, we're so happy for you. But then you had the real estate stuff not working for yourself, and then you're trying to figure out yourself. You mentioned that you gained a couple pounds and you just weren't yourself. When did you ever feel that you ever hit rock bottom, or did you kind of put a padding down and cut yourself in and kind of put that what do you say, that parachute on you before you hit rock bottom?
Um, I would say that going through all that was, I didn't fully recognize it until I walked away.
Hmm.
I knew that mentally I was not in a good spot. Physically, I was not in a good spot. But until I walked away and was able to sit down and kind of get back into reading and journaling, I didn't fully recognize what it was that I had gone through. And it's interesting, like, I guess for me, like running, reading, and journaling, or I guess working out, journaling, reading, learning, that sort of thing. That was such a huge part of what not just made me, but um, helped me become the person that I have become. Excuse me. And uh, that all started from learning about the Robin Sharman's The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, talked about the 5 a.m. Club. So that's where that all developed. When I was going through hell, um, actually, I'll go back even further. When I was training, like getting into running at the end of 2018, so 2019, 2020, I was like huge into running. And I always envisioned, like in my head, while I was like deep in that pain cave, I could envision like this. It was like I put a face to my inner demons, sort of thing. And while I was doing that, it was as though I could view my inner demons locked up.
Mhm.
And at a certain point in that run, if I started feeling like I was like I gotta walk, right? Like I gotta slow down. I would start thinking about that, and those inner demons, like that's the pain, heartache, all the stuff, all that stuff that people don't really want to talk about, the pains that you go to, the difficulties, the struggles, right? All
Mhm.
that stuff. I use that as my motivation to push myself further.
Mm.
And it turned into like you're facing that storm, and all of a sudden that beast mode, I guess, that people like to talk about, like that's where that came from, I guess. And that's how I was able to push on. Fast forward. Now we're 2 years into COVID. I'm, a few months, probably 5 or 6 months into this real estate disaster. And I was starting to like, I have to get running again, right? Because I knew physically I was putting on weight. And I would try to go for runs in the morning. And I'd go, because I had like this beautiful property.
Mm.
Despite the financials, like the property is what sold me on
Okay.
it. So like right beside me was a community center track and field. So I was able to actually like go onto this track and run it. And as I was doing that, all of a sudden, like I could visualize that the face of that inner demon, right? But then I could sense there was something darker.
Mm.
It was like it was like a almost like a superhero movie. Not that I'm in no way, shape, or form calling myself a superhero, but it relates to like you have like one bad guy that you're trying to defeat, right?
Yeah.
And then the hero defeats that bad guy, and then like an even badder guy comes in, or badder entity, right? And it's like, oh my goodness, that was essentially what was going on. Was like it was this dark cloud that was kind of it was like just engulfing me, and this would come into my mind while I was running the track.
Mm.
And like during that time frame, I had gotten away from journaling and writing. I was trying to get back into like working out as much as I could, and which wasn't much. And when it came to journaling, thinking, writing goals, that was non-existent. And when I sat down to do it, it's like for you write stuff out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you talked about at the start of the show. I appreciate the props. I would sit down to do that. And it was like I was taking a remote to turn on a TV and nothing would happen.
Mm.
It's like the batteries are charged. Like if the TV's plugged in, it was working the other day. Nothing.
Mm.
And so once I left my job and, go to Arizona, come back, it wasn't until about November when I started like sitting down and I was reading a bit, I was writing a little bit, but I was still like, trying to get the wheels going again for like
Yeah.
imagination, visualization, that sort of thing. And it just like, it was still not going for me. And then Clarissa and I did a month of cold plunges from
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it was just after the start of November to into December. And that I think was really beneficial. Like there's a lot of health benefits in general for doing cold plunges, but I think the mental aspect of getting in there and like focusing your mind and like giving you a goal of like, let's push it a little further. Let's see how much we can stay in here.
Yeah.
All the while, you know, waking up in the morning, I'd go for a walk and then I'd read and do a little bit of journaling and like try to make that a staple of my morning.
Mhm.
And so it was like my morning routine, cold plunge, let me go out for the day or do what I want to do for the day, sort of thing, right? And I just like did nothing until I'd say probably, well, I was taking a course, like a marketing course at the time, but I didn't really do anything till I'd say probably January. And in that time frame, like I wrote a lot, filled out my journal, and I think the proudest thing for me though was finishing the first book start to finish,
Nice.
which I had been an avid reader for probably a decade, maybe
Mhm.
even more. And like I would read a book, at least a book a month.
Mhm.
And this time it was actually Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club. Finally sat down, started reading it. And I'd say that book took me almost 2 months to go
Mhm.
through start to finish, but I did it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got done that one, move on to another one. And like, I don't just read the books, like I'll write down things, kind of study them a little bit. And so that whole morning routine and getting back into an exercise regimen and whatnot, that's really what's allowed me to come back to a place where I'm able to actually think again
Mhm.
and feel good again and not stressed out, panic attack. And actually, I do want to add this was an insight that I had in the last week, I'd say.
Nice.
So, Ric
Woo!
Flair, you'll like this. Ric
Woo!
Flair was on the Joe Rogan podcast a week or so ago.
Yep. I think last
And
Sunday, I think it was. Yeah.
yeah, and I was listening to a clip of his talk about when he was on Xanax and how that came about and how he got off. And as he was describing it, how, Ric Flair's the GOAT, right? Anyone who knows wrestling knows Ric Flair is on the Mount Rushmore. And back in like '89 or '90, he was basically told that he had to change up his entire gig, and it like
Yeah.
shattered his confidence
Because
so
of the
much so
plane
that
crash, right? Was it because I think it was because of the plane crash?
no,
Okay.
it was
Okay.
after that.
Okay.
It was in WCW when it was Bill something, Bill O'Reilly, or don't quote me on that. But it was a guy who he was a booker, didn't really know what he was doing. He was just a friend
Mm.
of one of the higher ups. And this was the guy telling Ric Flair that he had to completely change his gig. And at the time, like Ric Flair um, he wasn't happy with how his career was going because they weren't really properly utilizing him.
Mhm.
And so it shattered his confidence. He went home and he sat on the stairs at his place, and he's like, I've never known what anxiety is, but I had like an anxiety attack.
Mm.
And he started describing like the sleepless nights, feeling stressed out, and then his wife gave him a Xanax to take, which is like an antidepressant. And there's a lot of people that get on that stuff, and it's hard to get off. And luckily for him, even though he did it for like 30 years, he said, I only ever used it to sleep
Mm.
because when your mind's going and you're stressed out, like it's super hard to sleep. And how he described that is like, I recognize that. I was like, I know what that feels like. I've
Mm.
been there several times in the last couple of years, and it is not fun. And I was so thankful. Like for me, I'm a guy who I try to take care of things naturally, I guess, and kind of change look at the symptoms, sort of thing, right? Like
Yep.
functional medicine, that sort of thing. And so in hearing this, I'm going, holy crap! If I would have went and saw like a traditional doctor or something, on this, I might have been put on, not that I probably wouldn't have done it anyways, but like they probably would have recommended that I go on something like a Xanax or something.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a doctor, so do your own research, own thing there. But just me personally, how I feel is doing it the way that I did it. It just adds to my journey, I guess, and I feel like I'm coming back even stronger now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I can see that. And a quick question for you, in terms of like your journaling, because for me, I got started. It's funny, Steve, how breakups have like ignited things in my life. There's actually been a start of a new journey for me. So every breakup that I've had, um, well, my first breakup, it got me into journaling. So I'd kind of do it as a reflection of like how I felt that day. Another one got in me to meditation. I was like, okay, let me try this meditation. And just like what you're saying about like changing the channel, but nothing's changed or anything like that. That's how I feel about meditation sometimes, Steve, that I can sit there, but my mind wanders so much. And sometimes I think to myself, am I doing too much? Right? Whether it being like a podcast host and doing logistics and trying to manage the family and like the dogs and all that stuff. But then I understand that from a higher power that I'm where I need to be and I'm doing what I need to be, where I'm at in my life right now. But I want to get back to your journaling. When you did start writing your journal, well, two questions for you, two prong. When you was able to start writing, was it more of reflection journaling or was it at where you are like at that point in your life? And second question for you in terms of journaling, do you ever go back to like your first set, like your previous journal entries?
yes, I do. Actually, I have a garbage bag. Well, actually, I finally took them out of, because when I was moving everything, I
I was
just
gonna
had them
say,
in.
man, hey, no garbage bags.
No. It's I have them in a box now, and I make sure that they're like, we have like a one bedroom apartment,
Mhm.
but we have like a walk in attic. It's kind of set up like the Christmas Vacation attic where you pull down
Oh,
the
okay.
stairs. Anyways, I made sure that those stayed down here so they didn't get moldy or anything like that. But the I guess the first part of your question there, what do I journal about? Was that the
Yes. So what
question?
did you journal? Was it reflection or was it that what you felt in that day or what you wanted to accomplish in that day?
So to start, it was kind of reflecting on that current moment, I guess, what was going through my mind, and like it was kind of anything and everything. I just wanted to start writing and like get back into that.
Mm.
And so it's kind of more like a reflection. And from there, like there's days where I reflect on the day or some events that have gone on, some ideas for the future, or ideas with just different ideas for different things. Um, some days it's quotes. Maybe I'll reflect on a quote. Maybe it's what I'm reading. Some days it's just what are my goals? Write down a list of goals, right? And I try to be more consistent with doing goals morning and night, which is still very much a work in progress, but getting into it. In terms of, I guess following that, I'd say after the first month, when I finally sat down and I was like, okay, let me let me dive into this. It was actually, ironically, it was right after I got my own journal to write in, and I wrote. I was up till probably 1 in the morning. Clarissa went to bed at like 10:30, maybe 11, and I was up till like 1 o'clock in the morning or so. And I did that, I think, a couple nights in a row, just writing it. And I've never actually told you this, but this was like shortly after you and I had started talking. I don't even know if we like had like an actual conversation or not, but I remember like as I was writing that out, visualizing being on your podcast talking
Get
about
out of
this
here.
stuff.
Are you kidding me right now?
Nope,
That is
100%.
Yeah, I did not know that, by the way. For the honest, that wow, that is. Thank you. I want to thank you for that because I'm speechless for like the first time in my life, I guess. But I think that there's so much power in that, being able to visualize and manifest something as simple as that. And my take of you, Steve, has been someone who's been, I enjoy our conversations. Like I was telling you before, like the conversations that we've had, like, you could put a camera on, it doesn't really matter. Like our conversations don't change if a camera is on or if we're kind of like talking and kind of giving feedback. And I would consider you like in my inner circle when I kind of need to like bounce ideas off of. You were a big encourager of me doing this show. You're one of the many people who are like, you know what, Ryan, you're really good on Sales Chatter, which is the other show I do. But I think it would be really cool if you went on and did your own thing. And even Clarissa has been such a great help. And she's, for everyone who doesn't know Clarissa Page, she's the owner of Simco Wellness. She's a mental health coach. She does amazing, great things for the community. She's actually works with a local hockey team in her area, a junior team, as being their mental health coach. And I'll put some links to the shows that she's been on with Sales Chatter. But just seeing you both kind of come together is awesome. So I do want to ask you, because you guys are doing something. We're airing this on Monday. And I know Monday is going to be a hard launch for something that you guys are planning. And it's actually a new challenge for you that you were kind of telling me. Can you tell everybody what's coming up with this event that you guys are all planning together?
Yeah, so we have an event coming up in July 15th, called Sedona North. And we essentially want to take the magic found in Sedona, which, if you've ever been there or ever looked into Sedona, like, it's amazing. Whether you're into hiking, whether you're into like the new age, like natural healing stuff, whether you like art, or just, going to a place that's warm to enjoy the sun, friendly people, stunning landscapes, like, that place is magical. The energy there, everything there is just magical. And to bring that to the north, to the Midland area, we're going to have a full day of, it's essentially like a wellness retreat, full day wellness retreat. And it's kind of choose your own path sort of thing, because the three of us that are involved with this, there's myself, Clarissa Page, Carling Rose. The three of us have very similar ideas, but we're also very different in how we
Mhm.
approach things. So it's a very good mixture of minds, I guess. And so we have, the like, well, sound baths, yoga taking place, Reiki for the VIP tickets, and also to bring you more like mental challenges from a physical perspective, or taking the physical, but it's more mental. And to have all this come together, we're also bringing in Avi Johanna, who's just amazing breathwork practitioner. She's world renowned. Chris Assad, who is just an amazing musician and just accentuates that space so perfectly. Like, he's the perfect person to bring in for that. And it's going to be a fun day, action packed day. And towards the end, like, we're going to have big bonfire, dancing, music, all that. And it's going to be like this big celebration, I guess. And in my eyes, I keep calling it, it's like the perfect place in a post-pandemic world. There's a lot of
Nice.
alliteration there, but that's essentially what it is. Like, that awesome energy that we've been missing for so long. Like, this summer is really the first time in like 3 or 4 years that we've been able to actually get together and enjoy and socialize, and also to have more of a healing, growing, overcoming aspect to it. Like, it's the perfect formula in my mind that sets it apart. Like, I've seen, Clarissa's been to several events in a similar space, right? And there's a lot of like gratitude, appreciation, and to me, it's like I understand it, but there's that aspect of like growth and
Yeah.
challenging yourself in a different way, right? That I feel like there's that aspect that has been missing, or it's so hard to, like you mentioned, David Goggins earlier. That like huge fan over here. I would
Yeah.
mark everybody.
I would hope so, at least at least you're a runner. You know, I'd hope that you're a fan of his, right? So,
Yeah. But like to have an like what he talks about with his like the mental work and preparation that goes into the just like overcoming all the things that he's done.
mhm.
If you've never heard of David Goggins, I mean, listening to him speak might not be your cup of tea. He's a pretty like he's pretty blunt. He tells you like it is. But if you were to read his book, Can't Hurt Me, or his second one, Never Finished, you walk away from that going like, wow.
Yeah.
It gives you a whole new perspective on life, and you start to incorporate that what if mentality. What if I kept going, right? Just to push past your limits. And so to take like that aspect, to bring it into a space that is like very, in my eyes, it's very growth minded. Like people, they've gone through challenges, they've gone through struggles, they want to overcome it. They're sick of, feeling just not great about it, being stressed out and whatnot. It's like, how do you move past that? And we're bringing this event that's, again, it's like choose your own path. What do you resonate with?
Yeah.
To be able to overcome that and to recognize just how powerful you really are. And I think that if there's one thing that people can take away from that, it's to recognize their own internal power. That's where it's at. And like, you were a little hesitant, like, do I start this podcast? Do I do my own thing, right?
Mhm.
And to take that leap and to bet on yourself and like, no, I am good enough to do this. And like, I'm so proud that you've taken that step. And it's like taking that step is a form of betting on yourself and recognizing whether or not you do it in the moment, recognizing just how powerful you really are. And that's not like an arrogant statement. That's just like that's from a place of thankfulness and gratitude of like, yes, we are powerful beings. We like, I want to inspire people, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
to do that thing. One of the things that I thought coming into this and what I've been thinking about these last few months, you look back, like Steve Jobs in a famous speech talked about you can only connect the dots by looking backwards. Like some things happen that you're like, why is this happening? And then 2 years down the road, you go, oh, that's why this happened. It's for something great, right? And so when I look at what has happened in at least my path in the last few years, it's like if I didn't, if COVID didn't happen, and if I don't buy the place in Rodney that destroyed me mentally,
Yeah.
Clarissa and I would not be together.
Yeah.
And earlier you asked me about looking back, reflecting on past entries in my journals. I have journals all the way back to 2013.
Yeah.
And in 2014, that was the last time that prior to this, 2014 was when I felt like I hit rock bottom. And that year, I can go back. This was also when I discovered Robin Sharma, 5 a.m. Club. That's a whole other podcast right there. But I that year I wrote out a list of 73 points, and this came from a Darren Hardy presentation. Wrote out 73 points of the ideal partner that I wanted, and be specific. Don't leave anything to chance. Don't be general if you don't want to be general. Like, be as specific as possible.
Yeah.
73 points. Once I finish that, write out, okay, who do I need to become in order to attract this into my life? Which thankfully was only like 10 points. And I went and I felt like I was very intentional with how I have proceeded in the last decade. And like, I faced a lot of rejection, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache. You know, you talked about how breakups tend to lead you down a different journaling path and whatnot. For me, like I was rejected so much it was laughable. Like, I could to a T, like, be like, okay, this is when this is not going to happen. Bam, right?
Yeah.
And that was part of the fuel that fueled me in like my accomplishments over the last few years. And it got to a point where after I did my 100K run was the first time like I was physically broken. I could not run more than, if I ran more than 5 kilometers, it might feel fine, but the middle of the night, I would wake up in pure agony. Like, jeez. I have never felt that much pain before in my life. But I will say this. After I did that run, was the first time that I felt whole. Like, I had this inner drive that now looking back recognizes, like, I was searching for something external. And it got to a point where I sat there and reflected on all these things that I had done. And I was like, you know what? Who else can say that they have done this? And that's not an arrogant thing. That's me saying, looking back and going and recognizing just how badass I really am, and to appreciate the things that I had gone through, and to recognize, like, who else can say that they would push on through this and, you know, do the things that I've done. And it was just this feeling of appreciation and wholeness. And so as tattered and torn as I was, I had to go through, I had to run over 2,000 kilometers just to get myself to that point, to run the 100K, go through all that, plus all the other things. But now I got to walk away from my job. I haven't worked since October. So I'm very grateful for that. But I got to walk away and move in with the person I love, who, going back to 2014, those 73 points checked off. Yeah. Like peeling her off the page.
And so, sorry to interrupt. It's just like, I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, when you kind of find that person, you wrote those 73 points, and it's so powerful that you did, because a lot of us, we kind of get, especially when we're younger in age, we look for different things. I feel like I learned more about myself when I did these 7, I think it's the yeses, no, sorry. It was 7 Things of Truth by Tony Robbins. So you kind of write something, the 7 whys. Yeah. So you write something down, and then you're like, okay, why do you want that? And then why? And I think there's so much power in finding your true soulmate. And maybe we'll talk about that on a different episode or something like that. But I just found that that was so cool that you mentioned that, you know, you did 73 points, and then you look at your partner right now and you're like, wow. And you hit me with a bombshell. I'm going to hit you with another bombshell as well. Not bombshell, but, you know, when I connected with Clarissa on a website called matchmaker.fm. And just a quick story about that. I recently came onto the Sales Chatter show, and I found the show being very redundant for being a 2 year show. So I want to bring on it like brand new guests, different perspectives. And it's funny how life kind of pans out, man, because Clarissa was the only person, like, sorry, the first person that I reached out to, and she responded right away, and then she came on our show, and then we're here. So if I didn't go to Matchmaker, just like you were kind of breaking down your story about, like, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't have found my partner, or like we wouldn't have met or things like that. But like if I didn't go to matchmaker.fm, did the profile, reached out to her, and then do sales chatter, and then have our conversations, become friends that are we are right now, it's just like it's crazy what you kind of think about. So anybody who's thinking about doing something amazing, like you said, you guys got an amazing event coming up July 15th, I believe. Question for you with that event. I know it's a 1 day event, and definitely I'll be plugging that, putting some information on that. Is it going to be something where it's like an accommodation overnight? Is it like an overnight kind of thing, or is it what does the structure look like? Is it like from the morning to the night? Because I know the bonfires are going to be really, really cool to be a part of.
It is a 1 day event. There's no overnight accommodations there.
Okay.
Not this year. Maybe next year. Who knows? Depends on how well it goes, right?
Yep.
But it is, I guess it's technically Penetanguishene, but we have, it's literally like a 5 minute drive from Midland. So it, like Midland, Penetang, if you've never been, it's kind of one and the same almost. And we have hotels, great hotels in Midland. There's a lot of Airbnbs and whatnot that get booked up in the surrounding area. But I mean, anywhere you can stay on Georgian Bay up here is incredible.
Beautiful
So
place.
I would say if you're coming from out of town, it's best to start looking at booking things now, because it's going to be the middle of summer. So there's going to be a lot of people already coming up here just for the beaches and festivals and whatnot. And I personally, I just hit my mic. I personally had never been to Midland unless I was here as like a teeny little kid. But I had never been to Midland until Clarissa and I started dating. And coming here, it's like there's so much culture, art, like more than just the beaches. I had no idea they have the largest butter tart festival in
Don't
Ontario.
tell my
Maybe
wife,
even
man.
Canada.
Don't tell my wife. She's a butter tart fiend.
June 10th. June 10th.
June 10th. All right.
If you want to get in her good books.
Well, I'm definitely going to try to come out there. I'm definitely going to try to come out there for the July 15th. And hey, you never know. We might do a live episode of the Logistics Monk Show all together from there. But that's cool. How can people find out more information? What's the website like? What's the socials like? How they can get a hold of you in order to get those tickets?
So if they go to www.sedonanorth.love, they can find their tickets there. It's sedonanorth.love.
.love.
Go figure. I had no idea you could get a domain name like that. I think.
Yeah, I might need to change up my domain names. Get the Logistics Monk Show .love. So we're definitely gonna reach out to there. Steve, can't thank you enough, brother. This has been so much fun. I got one last question for you. What is your message to the world?
My message to the world is sometimes we go through things that's beyond our scope, that might seem impossible at the time to go through, and that you're left wondering why. Why is this happening to me? Why do I have to continue to do these things? And I like to reprogram that into thinking maybe, just maybe, the reason that you're going through that is so someone else doesn't have to. Maybe you can help them in some way, whether it's just a conversation, maybe it's just a post, maybe you never actually meet them, but in some way your suffering, you having to struggle, go through things, face your challenges, face your fears in some way, someone else doesn't have to. And I think to put it in that perspective, why wouldn't you do it?
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for everybody that's watching. This is the fourth episode of the Logistics Monk Show. If you found value in this, which I know you did, please like, comment, share it with anybody, like your neighbor, the partner you're with, the person that you're going to Sedona North with to hang out with Steve and Clarissa and all those amazing people that are going to be there. And most importantly, share it with the Amazon driver who's bringing you your packages today, because we all know you definitely did place an order last night on Amazon Prime. We definitely go this Logistics Monk Show. We're live every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube primarily. So with that being said, everybody have an amazing day, and we'll see you guys next Monday. Take care.